covering Nicolas Cage.
Oh no, how'd that happen?
Ooh. If you move your head, he's just right there.
Peeking.
Hey guys, thank you so much for swinging on over here to the Awesome Drone Show. We just saw the new movie Madam Web, the highly anticipated Madam Web movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
The greatest movie since Morbius.
Yeah. And so what I want to put it out there, so there's no, so no, everybody just knows beforehand. All the reviews that are seen coming through are true.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, the movie is not very good.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of good things I want to say about it, but I'll just get the good thing out of the way.
Yeah.
There's about 20 minutes of this movie, 20, 30, maybe, I'll say maybe 20 minutes in the movie that felt, I'm not going to even say really it was like great.
Yeah.
But that felt like it wasn't going to be utter trash.
Yeah, like the first like quarter of the movie, I was watching it and I was thinking to myself, oh my god, am I actually gonna like not hate this movie? Yeah, I was even thinking, because we just watched the Last Airbender movie last night, the M. Night Shyamalan movie. So I was like, oh my god, was it a bad idea to watch that movie before we went to go see this movie? Because now I'm comparing it to that and it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But then at a certain point, it just went off the rails.
Yeah, and I'll say not even that. There's the very beginning of the movie I didn't like all that much, but then after that, there's like a portion that wasn't bad. Like I was like, like I feel like I could get myself to just sit back and just watch this movie.
Yeah, and you could honestly tell in that 20-ish minutes that the director S.J. Clarkson actually has talent and she can actually like direct, which obviously she can, because she directed the very first 2 episodes of Jessica Jones, which is great.
Yeah.
And in those 20-ish minutes, you could tell there's some shots that were actually kind of cool. Like there's one specifically where Madam Web, her name is Cassandra in the movie, I think, or Cassie. She's talking to an ambulance driver, and she has a vision of them getting in a car wreck. And then it shows her walking away, and in the background you see the ambulance get hit by a car. So the way that was shot was kind of cool. I kind of like that. And it's funny because every scene that they showed Cassie in the beginning, I liked. Yeah. But then they would show the bad guy of the movie, Ezekiel, and all of his scenes were so terrible. It literally felt like 2 different directors were directing those 2 different stories. It felt like 2 different movies. And then at a certain point of the movie, it felt like they just went with the director who was directing the Ezekiel scenes, because the rest of the movie just was terrible, directed terribly, and everything was just terrible about it.
Which, you had told me this a few weeks ago, I think, which at some point they wanted to have Spider-Man. I don't know if they wanted to have Spider-Man in this movie or they wanted to connect to Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man directly.
Well, I think they were wanting to have it connect at least to Andrew Garfield's or Tom Holland's. I don't know if it was ever like specified, but then apparently they did like the time period wrong. Yeah. And then they realized that, so they were like, "Oh, just take off all the references to Spider-Man and all that that we were planning on doing."
And I wouldn't be surprised if all of the stuff with the villain was stuff that came in later, especially because there's a lot of obvious ADR in this movie.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of obvious ADR. It's so obvious. There's obvious those moments where like you see like their mouth, and the mouth obviously isn't moving with what they're saying. But there's even moments that's so bad to where like you don't even see their face, and you can still tell it's ADR. Not
gonna say any specifics, but towards the end, there's one scene when one of the 3 Spider-Women that Madam was trying to protect, she's like, I knew she had a plan, but it didn't show her. Yeah. It's just so awkward. It's like a random voice being thrown out during this action scene. Yeah. It's just so random. And then, like you said, like Ezekiel would be talking sometimes, and like his mouth was obviously not like moving with what he was saying. It's just like looks so awkward.
Yeah, and so I just want to state this out there, because I don't think there's a lot of people that really understand how bad Sony can be. This is not us trashing the director.
Right.
Okay? She seems to be a very capable director. This is us trashing Sony.
Yeah, honestly.
Because Sony has been known to do this, and it seems like they would have learned by now with Spider-Man 3, and being so hated,
Exactly,
or
yeah.
like so disliked.
Yeah, because if y'all don't know, Sony infamously made Sam Raimi put Venom into Spider-Man 3, even though he didn't want to put Sam Raimi.
He didn't want to put Sam Raimi.
Yeah, he didn't want to put Sam Raimi in his own movie. No, he didn't want to put Venom in Spider-Man 3, but Sony forced him to.
Yeah.
So that, which it's kind of funny. We always joke around how I really feel like the dancing around that Peter Parker did in Spider-Man 3 was pretty much like Sam Raimi giving Sony the middle finger.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you made me put Venom in this movie, so here you go.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really frustrating. And it's whenever I come to these movies and, who knows, maybe the director, maybe this was her vision. It doesn't seem like it would be, but it doesn't just seem like, and so a lot of people could be trashing this movie, and I think a lot of people could be trashing it for the wrong reasons. You definitely will see those sexist idiots, that will just be talking about it being about women. But like, you could definitely make this movie good, even with women in it.
Right, yeah.
Who would have guessed, right?
Because I feel like somewhere in this movie there is actually a pretty interesting and decent story that they could have made.
Yeah.
It's just they went the least interesting ways and wrote it the least interesting way possible.
Exactly. And so whenever it comes to this, a lot of people are going to be trashing this movie for just a lot of the wrong reasons. And don't get me wrong, probably a lot of them understand, but it really is probably going to come down to Sony. And really, they keep on doing this with all these movies. And I was talking to Zach about this earlier, especially with this one, because the way it sounded like, it was like they kept on changing things over and over. They kept on doing things over and over again to where like, they just like, oh, we just got to get it out. And it's like, how like whenever you were in school sometimes and like you took a test and you forgot to study for it. So whenever you went to go take it, you were just stressed throughout the whole thing. So you kind of really almost rushed it just to turn it in, just so you could stop being stressed out about it. You just know that inevitably it's going to be a failure, but you just want to be done with it and throw it out there with the lack of effort that you put into it. That's really what it feels like Sony has been doing. And honestly, a lot of different studios have been doing with their movies. It's just throwing it out there just because they're making it, so might as well throw it out there.
Just get it over with. At least we can retain the rights to Spider-Man now.
And Sony has been doing the opposite thing of Warner Brothers, which is putting their bad movies out there just to throw them out there, and Warner Brothers has been pulling in there,
canceling movies,
canceling the movies that are actually being good reviewed.
Right.
I don't know what. That's a whole nother discussion that we don't want to put in here.
Exactly. Yeah. Honestly, the state of like movie studios is just like terrible nowadays. Like, I don't know why. Like, it's like all of a sudden, like movie studios act like they don't know what to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to sound like some film purist or anything like that. There are a lot of good movies. There's even good superhero movies. You can make them good.
Yeah.
I think,
and that's another thing, because like people are not to interrupt you, but like people like talk about superhero fatigue nowadays, but it's not that. I don't think it's necessarily like the amount of superhero movies that are coming out. It's the amount of superhero movies that are bad that are coming out.
Yeah, it's the laziness that are now put into
the Marvels, She-Hulk, Thor: Love and Thunder. It's like all these movies back to back to back, and now this. Yeah. It's like, okay, you think they would course correct at some point, but they just keep continuing coming out with all this bad stuff.
Yeah, and when it comes to people saying like superhero fatigue, it's kind of just a lazy criticism. It's very lazy criticism. And I really don't like lazy criticisms. I don't like things like superhero fatigue. I don't like people saying things like woke, because those are very lazy criticisms just to say one word for a much deeper issue. And now kind of going away from that tangent, and that tangent about Sony and stuff like that, which is really not, because it's the whole reason why this movie's bad. Right? But the writing in it, the screenplay was pretty awful at times. Yeah,
which they hired the writers for Morbius, even though Morbius was completely panned.
And Gods of Egypt, right?
Yeah, and they wrote Gods of Egypt as well. So they hired the writers for Morbius and Gods of Egypt to write this movie.
Yeah,
it's like they wanted this movie to fail. Which, I mean, no offense to those writers, but they have not a good track record so far.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, who knows? Well, the unfortunate part, we'll never know what this movie could have been, because Sony keeps on sticking their nose where it shouldn't be.
Exactly.
You know, and I understand you're a studio, you want to have a good movie. But the thing is, by now, Sony, you should realize, oh, if I'm thinking this, maybe we should just do the opposite. Because we can't make the correct decisions on any of this. And like, there's just so many weird lines. And so many, honestly, really bad line delivery.
Yeah, horrible line delivery. Like the bad guy of the movie, Ezekiel. Every line that he said was just terrible.
Yeah,
like his line delivery was terrible. And I think you even mentioned in the car on the ride home that it sounded like he was just trying to sound as evil as he could instead of just like talking normally.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just came off so terribly. But then also Dakota Johnson, a lot of her line delivery was horrible too. Which I mean, to be fair, like some of the lines were pretty terrible. I don't think any kind of line delivery could have saved it. But there were some simple ones that she could have said just normally. Like there's one scene when she's talking to Ben Parker, and she's like, "Sorry, Ben, you don't deserve," or "Sorry, Ben, you never asked for any of this." Yeah. But she rushed through it so fast, and she said it so flatly.
Yeah. It was like, "Sorry, Ben, you never asked for any of this." Yeah. Whenever it should have been like, "Sorry, Ben." Yeah. Like a little pause, and like look down, maybe like, "You never asked for any of this."
Right. Exactly.
So, you know, something with a little bit of heart in it. And I don't want to. I don't want to trash her either, because with acting, you need a clear, good direction, and with a clear, good direction, you need to have some freedom.
Right.
And Sony, you go a little bit up. You have Sony hovering over the director.
Yeah.
The director, you get hovered over, probably doesn't have as much care, as much heart as the work they're doing on the work they're doing right now. Understandably so. You don't have as much care or heart. You're not going to give your actors the best direction. It's just the way it is. You know, it's just the way it works. It's a hard movie for me to go in on, and I just want to make it clear that I'm just going in on Sony,
right,
for the most part.
Exactly, because I do like to be optimistic about movies. I like to be on the filmmaker's side, about a lot of things, especially because like I've never made a movie, but I know how hard. Well, I have an idea of how hard it can be to make a movie, especially when a studio is like bearing down on you and forcing you to do different changes that you don't want to make. So I know how difficult it can be, but it's like, it's just frustrating that products like this can continue to be put out.
And another thing that was not the best about this movie was honestly a lot of the editing in this movie, because what you have is, and you can, if you've seen trailers, you know, basically she can tell like a few moments into the future, like something will pop into her head that's going to happen, and then she'll do it. And then she'll do something to try to stop it, right? There's a few moments in this movie where they do that, but they do it with like every action that she takes. Right. Like she does this, then sees in the future, comes back, avoids that, sees this in the future, avoids that. Like, and it's just so jumbled. It really is. That it's like, what is actually happening right now?
Because like the first few times he did it in the movie, it was actually pretty cool, because it was in that section that was actually kind of directed well. But then over time, they kept doing it over and over again. And it's like, oh my god, okay, stop. You calm down with this. And it gets even worse by the end of the movie. The final battle, they do it over and over again.
That final battle is like giving you whiplash with like the amount of it just like going back and forth.
Right. Like, and there's one section towards like the end of the second act of the movie, whenever she gets pushed into this one pool or lake, and she like starts seeing these visions, and she sees like her mom in the past, and they keep like flashing these lights on the screen, like over. It's like a 5 minute, or it's probably not 5 minutes, but it's a few minutes long scene, and they keep flashing lights in your face. And like, I don't have epilepsy or anything, but it was even almost giving me a seizure. Like how many lights were flashing. So if you do have epilepsy, I'll give you a big warning for that. Because there's a big section where they keep flashing lights. But even other scenes, especially like at the end of the movie, the final battle, they kept flashing back and forth, and it's very difficult, very jarring. And you couldn't tell what was going on. And like Ben Parker, Uncle Ben, and Mary Parker, Peter Parker's mom, they're both characters in this movie. But I really don't understand the purpose of them being in this, other than, oh, hey, this is Uncle Ben and Peter Parker's mom. And honestly, I really feel like this movie could have been at least better and more focused if they just had Ezekiel trying to kill Mary Parker before Peter Parker is born to stop Spider-Man from stopping him in the future.
Yeah.
Instead of having these 3 other spider characters that really didn't have that much characterization. They tried to a little bit, but the writing and acting wasn't the greatest.
Yeah.
But like it could have saved a lot more screen time and more focus on Cassandra and this whole story in general.
Yeah.
Instead of bloating it with so many characters and all that. Yeah. And plus, it would have given Ben Parker and Mary Parker more of a purpose in the story if Ezekiel was trying to kill Mary Parker. And it just would have been a cooler story in general, I think.
Because I think another thing, and I brought this up to you earlier, is that the whole story of this movie and with the villain is that I guess he's continuously had, which you only see it once, but I guess he's always had this dream where the 3 girls are gonna kill him, and so he goes on this quest to stop them from killing him. But at the end of the day, they would have never killed him if he didn't try to stop them, because they would have never crossed paths in the first place.
Right.
It's kind of weird just because of the fact that it all starts mainly because he's trying to stop them from killing him, but it never would have happened. And so in that way, doing something like that, it's like he's trying to stop something that will inevitably happen regardless of what he does.
Right.
You know, because Spider-Man will not try to kill him, but will at least catch him in the future, you know?
Right.
And so he's trying to kill Mary Parker, you know, before any of that happens, which like you said, that would make it more focused, and also it would stop that from happening. Especially
because like the 3 Spider Women in this movie, they weren't even like, they didn't even have powers yet.
Yeah.
So it's not like they were even really doing anything.
Yeah.
Like you could have just like cut them out and just had him try to kill Peter Parker's mom. And to go back to what you were saying with the editing, I feel like there's some scenes also that just like lasted a little bit too long. It's like the pacing was just so weird. They're weirdly off and awkward because they would let scenes run for so long. It's like, you can chop it here. Like, and like, especially because like there's one scene towards the end of the movie whenever Mary Parker's water breaks.
Yeah.
And they're like rushing to the car and all that. But like, them rushing to the car is slow paced, so slow paced.
Yeah,
you'd think it'd be like more urgency into what they were doing, but like it feel like it lasted like so long. Them just getting to the car.
Yeah,
and it's also funny just seeing some of the interviews that Dakota Johnson has done for this movie.
Yeah,
like there's one where she even mentioned like she doesn't know if the movie's gonna be any good because all she did was worked with like blue screens, so she didn't see anything that was going on or anything. And she also mentioned that the script pretty much completely changed after she signed on for the movie, and it's like, okay, goodness, you're being pretty honest about all this. It was just kind of funny just seeing. I know she said some more stuff, I just can't remember off the top of my head some of the things she said in interviews.
The winner for Best Picture at the Oscars will be
Oppenheimer?
That's incorrect. It's actually Madam Web.
Okay.
It's going to be a Madam Web sweep, I think.
Okay, that will also piss people off. Oh, Madam Web sweep the Oscars. Can you imagine?
Oppenheimer gets like Best Sound, Madam Web, everything else.
Okay, sure.
Another big thing that like makes you realize kind of how rushed this movie was is like the very last line of this movie. I feel like they were trying to like, they wanted to end it off with a cool line. But the line just, you're like, what? And she says something like, she was like, and the best thing about the future is, what was it like?
It hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened yet. The best thing about the future that hasn't happened yet. I was like, what? And it ends.
Right.
I was like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's the line we're ending this with?
Yeah. Oh, and also, some of the just popped in my head, some of the filming, the angles and stuff were just really awkward too. Yeah. Like for one, whenever they first showed Ezekiel in the present day, and he wakes up from like a nightmare from seeing the vision, they showed the entire scene on like a Dutch angle.
Yeah.
Like I said, like that beginning like 20 minutes, it felt like whoever was directing the Cassie scenes and the person who was directing the Ezekiel scenes were completely different directors.
Yeah.
Because the Cassie scenes seemed confident, and then the Ezekiel scenes seemed completely terrible.
Yeah.
But then there's a few zoom-ins, like one the climax of the movie, whenever Cassie is like you thought they were part of your future, and then it zoomed into her face. She's like, but I was.
Yeah.
It was so cheesy. It was hilarious, but so cheesy.
There was also some weird, awkward zoom-ins in the beginning whenever Ezekiel is like, it's whenever you find out that he's bad. The very beginning of the movie, he like kills 2 guys, and he's having like this serious confrontation with Cassie's mom, and they kept doing this thing where they would cut and then zoom in, and then cut zoomed out, and then zoom in, back and forth between the 2 characters. And like, I don't know why they didn't zoom in at all. Zooming in quickly is just a weird thing to do.
It's something that YouTubers do.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing to do in like a serious scene. But like, I don't even know why they kept cutting zoomed out and then zooming in. Each time they get back and forth. I was like, what is this? That's another thing, is like that scene felt like it was directed by everything with Ezekiel, and then like after that first like 20 minutes. That first 20 minutes really just felt like it was like in a different movie. Yeah,
and we've talked a little bit about Ezekiel and like the acting and all that, but also just the character in general was just terrible. He was just like such a bland character, bland villain. He was like a mustache twirling villain, pretty much. He was just like evil. They didn't give him like barely any backstory or anything. It's just like and the girl that was working for him too. They're just like that evil like team, whatever.
Yeah, because like it starts off with him killing some people because he wants to steal the spider, and he gets powers. But then like everything after that never really connects. It's just another way to bring him with her daughter,
right?
You know. And after that, the only motivation he has is to stop these 3 teenage girls from killing him that he has seen kill him in his dream. That's it. That's his whole motivation throughout the whole movie.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
It has nothing to do with the spider that he stole at the beginning. I mean, he killed her mom, but it's just a bunch of stuff that never actually fully connects. It connects almost by chance, but it never actually connects together directly.
And just one more thing that I can think of, we keep harping on the acting, but like just the chemistry of all the 4 main characters, Cassie and the 3 Spider Women, like they didn't have any chemistry like at all together. So like towards the end of the movie when they like become like a team, like it didn't feel earned like at all. It just felt like it was in the script, so now we're friends.
Especially like whenever Cassie like is in the hospital and she's like the doctor like walks in and she's like, "Are these your immediate family?" She's like, "Yeah, they're mine. They're mine." I was like, where does this come from?
I know.
Yeah, I also forgot to bring this up, but like whenever Cassie goes blind and like wakes up, she doesn't have any reaction to the fact that she just lost her eyesight.
Exactly. And also it just felt like so tacked on at the end that she becomes blind. They're like, oh crap, Madam Web in the comics is blind. So they're like, she's in the water. Let's just have something crash into her eyes. Like the Ezekiel doesn't do it or anything. It's just like a random projectile that lands it on her eye.
And there was something in this movie that like weirdly bugged me, and after the movie I'm like, why was my attention so on that? There's a part in this movie whenever Cassie's like at a party, I think it's like a baby shower or something like that, and like someone hands her a can of Pepsi, and this movie really did get paid by Pepsi Cola. Like it had like it was definitely, but
for sure
someone hands her this Pepsi, and I don't know why I was so focused on this, but she carries this can of Pepsi with her for quite some time. Never opens. There's even a time where she like puts her hand on it, but never actually opens it. And she's just carrying it around really awkwardly for like a long time. And it was like obviously Pepsi ad placement.
Not even mentioning the final fight scene takes place underneath the Pepsi Cola sign.
Exactly, and there's like a very obvious product placement. But yeah, I just thought it was funny because after the movie, I was talking to Zach. I'm like, I don't know why my mind was so focused on this Pepsi can that she was carrying around with her for a weird amount of time without opening. But it just was. If I were to, for some reason, decide to like compare this to Morbius, you know, I would say a really weird thing about this movie is I do think it's better than Morbius. There's obviously an actual good part of this movie. It's a better made movie than Morbius, but it's not nearly as enjoyable and entertaining to watch as Morbius.
Yeah, yeah. Like Morbius definitely had more of a so bad it's fun movie kind of feel.
Yeah. So I'll give good job to Venom and Venom 2 for being the best movies in the Sony universe. They're not good, but they're the best movies in the Sony universe so far, by far.
Exactly. Yeah. Honestly, which is sad to say because I don't like those movies either.
We are gonna say that Madam Web is 20% awesome. Well, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, comment and let us know what you thought about Madam Web. And also, just if you want to, you can rank all the Venom movies, Morbius, Madam Web, all down below if you want.
Fun.
Yeah.
Oh, and then we still got Kraven the Hunter this year, too.
Oh, yeah. Goodness, yeah.
Hey, at least they didn't make the Aunt May movie that they... Remember when they planned that? They literally, legitimately planned to make an Aunt May movie back in the day.
Man, Sony has no idea what they're doing. They have no idea what they're doing at all.
But also don't forget to follow us on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X. I'm just gonna call it Twitter from not like it's Twitter and TikTok, all at the Awesome Padrone Show.
And as always, thank you so much for watching, and you will see us later.